We're talking behind the scenes of the Roundhouse and the Questors Adventures. One of the things that I decided when I was writing was to write a book that had some difficult situations for youth, but they handle them in positive ways. It's really got some positive messages and role models in it. How to deal with some bullies, overcoming fear, relationships with the boys and their parents, and even as they grow up, their relationship with each other, where they have to learn how to trust. The rural setting really lends itself to boys looking for, oh my God, what are we going to do now? So when this dare comes out to visit a haunted house, they can't help themselves, and then it becomes a passion that they continue with. So some of the fun things about the story is I did mix some real truths with some not so much truth, embellished truth, so to speak. You'll never find out because I've sworn all the questers to secrecy, so they'll never tell you what really happened. But some of the things that did and were real is that both houses did exist. In the story, the boys must come across a dog that chases them. In fact, that's one of their biggest obstacles. And the dog's name is Mutt. The dog really existed, but we never knew its name. Mutt actually was a mean dog that lived next door. He would chase kids too. In fact, that's one of the big problems one of the editors in a company I sent it to had, is they couldn't believe that dogs were running around unleashed and that kids were getting chased by the dogs. And in fact, we preferred to ride our bikes because we'd get chased by dogs so much we actually had a chance to outrun them. Mutt didn't ever chase me. I was able to talk to him. I think he knew I was his neighbor. There was also another problem the editors had with the first book, and I ended up passing with that company because of it, and that was that there's a class the boys take in middle school called In Search of Strange Phenomena. That is also true. I went to Pleasant View Middle School, and the teachers were allowed to pick an open lab at the end of the day, and we had everything from ceramics to computer stuff to Civil War or world history. And one of our newer teachers came in and taught a class in Search of Strange Phenomena. We ended up taking it twice, and the teacher's name I changed in the book, but the boys in this case did reach out to the teacher for some advice in the supernatural. Chad, who was the smallest in our group, really did have a problem breaking bones. Luckily he grew out of it. Although he was the smallest in our group, he ended up growing up to be the biggest in our group. Both the houses again did exist. The second one my friend did live in, and we did suspect it was haunted. In each story we make fun of people from California. First is if you're native to the area, you really do think California people are outlandish. I also put this in the books to make fun of my cousins who come from California. Also in the books, there's always a scene with what I call the old codger, and I think I got this idea from some of the spaghetti westerns I watched when I was a kid growing up, that there's always some drunk old codger in the movies. In the book, the Ghost of Windy Hill is mentioned. The Ghost of Windy Hill was one of the first books I read about supernatural when I was growing up, and there's a scene in the roundhouse where the boys get scared and they're running down these stairs. Lewis trips and the lights are flashing on and off, and as he looks up, he's noticed some books have fallen from the bookcase, and he reads the side or the spine of one, The Ghost of Windy Hill. So that was a shout out to the author, The Ghost of Windy Hill, and that it was the first book I read. Shane always hits his knee in every story on something. He's also always being told to tie his shoes. Mike really hated bugs, although in the book I have him collect bugs. In fact, he has a pet tarantula called Herman and a pet cockroach named Reggie, and he's actually trained these to where they can perform or do stuff. Uses a tarantula to scare some bullies and uses Reggie to climb up some conduit. The words grammar and English are purposely misspelled throughout the book. I had to tell the editors to quit correcting this. I did that on purpose. In the book, Shane is a Red Sox fan, Chad is a Dodgers fan, and Louie is a Yankees fan, and they prominently wear their hats throughout the scenes. The Roundhouse and Savior, the first two books came out, and The People Across the Sea came out in an era where ebooks weren't popular yet. The Questors Adventure, which came out in 2012, was my first ebook available. It was at the end of the first book, The Roundhouse, where we decided as a group to call ourselves the Questors, and where the concept of Questors began, that I was going to continue with this series. Right now I am in the works of writing the third book, which is called The Ghost of Greenhorn. No projected date at this time, but for those of you who like this series, I do plan to write a third one.